in education, they're very good at disguising the language. They and teachers often have, and this is something I've written about at different places. They have a language where things that the public hears what they mean and say, "Oh, that sounds nice." It means something completely different in education. You know, equity's been used for a long time in education. The public, they finally caught up. The problem is they caught up after these equity-based policies had been instituted and already are deeply entrenched. But things like culturally relevant education, sounds benign. I mean, it's not like something that's going to catch anyone's attention. So there's all these different ideological catchphrases that house something much more sinister. If you teach in the type of school district like I taught in, where a lot of kids did have very chaotic home lives and less stress and gangs and stuff, teaching them how to be able to calm themselves, that's great. Maybe reduce fights. But the problem is that other stuff gets fit into social emotional learning. And so when people are like, are you for and against social emotional learning? I'm like, I don't even know what is social emotional learning. It depends on how you define it. Am I against teaching kids social and emotional skills? No. But the way it exists right now, where it's become a political tool, yes. So this is another example of how clever they are. They pick a word that sounds nice and that's benign. They fill it with all the stuff. So then you have to be the person who's arguing against something that sounds nice.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a day called Love and Kindness Day, and we're actually gonna teach anti-racist theory according to Ibram Kendi during this day. So then all the parents out there protesting, they're the ones against Love and Kindness Day. Look at these. I mean, that's it's like, and we fall for it.
One of the reasons why you see things like social emotional learning coming into place is because we have an epidemic now of we can't teach in a classroom because of disturbances. Students don't know a whole lot about manners. They don't know about how to behave in some ways. So that was the argument for bringing things in like social emotional learning. The problem now is it's gone into things that it has no business. For example, I saw on the copy machine a copy of a SEL worksheet, right? That talks about how did it address it? Along the lines of, do you feel comfortable telling your parents anything? That was one question. The second question was, would you feel comfortable telling them if you identified as blah, blah, blah? See, that's a line right there. That should not be anywhere near a school at all. That's not my cup of tea. That is something that should be discussed with parents. If and I've heard the argument that started up now with regards to, well, not all parents are there, or they're not going, then they may harm their students because they don't agree with them. Well, then that's why you have CPS. It's not the role of schools to become the parent in and of itself. It's not my role to dictate what parents should or should not do. It's unfortunate we do have parents that might act out in that way. But again, we have laws for that. Keep school school. And so with social emotional learning, unfortunately, I think it's got some good things to it, but what it's being done and used now is as a tool to bring in all of this stuff, the back door of thinking with things. When they talk about tolerance, they'll use examples of, someone, Johnny actually prefers the name Susan. I could ask the question, really, what does that have anything to do with social emotional? But that's what things are being brought in as.